is there a vibe to the films on this list? Is there what can we say about the past 25 years in filmmaking? Does it feel 21st century to you?
It does. It feels, to borrow a term from the world of music, it feels a little post-grunge, this list.
You've reached American History Hotline. You ask the questions, we get the answers. Leave a message.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
What's up, fam? It's sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together.
We're breaking down the biggest headlines, the viral moments, and the stories everyone's talking about across women's sports.
From game-changing performances to culture-shifting conversations, we'll give you our takes, our debates, and a few laughs along the way.
Because everyone watches women's sports. Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Joy 101, and listen now. Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb is presented by CVS.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke, and Yerin. Have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to the Sweet 305 podcast, where the group chat comes to life.
What up? You're the only person I know that loves a yellow Starburst.
It's lemonade.
This is Sweet 305. Here, oversharing is encouraged. Listen to Sweet 305 with Lele Pons on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with Michael Bublé. After Kevin's recent interesting confession about Michael, we figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they were like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal.
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
30 years ago, an island off Manhattan almost brought down New York City.
Who will you trust? Your friends and neighbors? Or will you trust the people 5 miles overseas?
This is a story about neighbors turning on each other and what happens when a forgotten place decides it's had enough.
But we're not stopping, are we?
Listen to Revisionist History, The Staten Island Problem on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey there, American History Hotliners. Bob Crawford here again. Thrilled to be joining you with another episode of American History Hotline, the show where you ask the questions. And the best way to get us a question is to record a video or a voice memo on your phone and email it to americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. That's americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. Okay, today's question is actually one we asked you, the listener. I'll explain more about that in a second, but first, let me introduce you to today's guest, Mark Ellis. He's a comedian and Rotten Tomatoes correspondent. Mark, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Bob. I have so many questions to ask you about American history that I'm just going to have to start submitting my own videos to the show because I got more questions than answers over the last 270 years-ish.
We appreciate that, and we will happily accept your questions anytime. Okay, Mark, we asked our listeners to send us their takes on the New York Times list, the best 100 movies of the 21st century. Basically, the best movies of the past 25 years. We'll put a link in the show notes if anyone wants to take a look at it. Sadly, Snow Dogs with Cuba Gooding Jr. didn't make that list. Maybe it was 101. But Mark, let's work our way up the top 10 best movies. First, what's your reaction to this list? I mean, are you a list guy?
I am a list guy, and I think that goes all the way back to, I'm a huge sports fan as well, and sports fans spend way too much of our lives debating and ranking and trying to figure out who's the greatest of all time and who's in the top 10. And so this is right in my wheelhouse, even though I will also stand on the perch of it's hard to make art competitive, and it's such a subjective kind of thing, especially when it comes to film, where everybody has your own interpretation and your own viewpoint going into a theater. So naturally, you're going to have a slightly different take on whatever you just saw as you walk out of the theater. Having said all that, I found this list to be wonderful. There's movies that are on it that I don't think I need to see. There's movies that are not on it that I'm a little upset about. But what I love about these kind of lists is that they get us talking, not just doing podcasts like this, but they just get us talking amongst your friends, amongst your family, and certainly, as we've seen in the last few months on social media, about this list in particular.
Let me ask you this question. Here we are. This is a list it's a 21st century list. And the history of film, begins early in the 20th century. What can we say overall? Like, is there a vibe to the films on this list? Is there what can we say about the past 25 years in filmmaking? Does it feel 21st century to you?
It does. It feels, to borrow a term from the world of music, it feels a little post-grunge, this list. Now, but I say that with the exception of some hopeful and uplifting movies, but those are usually the films that I think a lot of critics would consider to be more populist movies or even movies for kids. So you have a couple Pixar movies on here. You have some comedies that I think are the bulk of the uplifting, happy kind of, lead the theater on a high note kind of film. But a lot of these are really intense. A lot of these feature a lot of struggle. There's despair. There's hopelessness. And so if you're looking for pockets of hope on this list, you're really going to have to get your microscope out. It's a great list overall, but there's not a lot of positivity is what I'm seeing on the list.
Sounds very 21st century to me. Thus far. Look, the century begins with a hanging Chad. You know what I'm saying? And now we're the second Donald Trump term. So, okay, so this list was made. It was made by directors and actors and Hollywood insiders. Like, does it feel like it's in line with what audiences might think?
I don't think this is an audience-based list. That was the first thing that kind of stuck out to me when I was looking at it, is that this is a list from folks who are in the industry. There's a lot of movies that I think most folks reading this list may not have even heard of, or they may have said, oh yeah, I heard about that. I mean, even if you look at just like the top 5, it's hard to look at a movie that crushed at the box office. I mean, I know There Will Be Blood was talked about a lot, and it's a great movie, but as far as the movies that were box office darlings, you're not going to see a lot of those on this list. But that's also one of the reasons why I like that this is a New York Times 100 Best Movies of the 21st Century list, because this is going to be read by folks who are then going to go explore these movies and have their own takes on it.
Let's get to some of our listeners' questions and comments. Elaine in Sacramento wrote to us and said, I'm glad to see Gladiator made the list, but I can't believe it came out 25 years ago. Mark, Gladiator was 92 on the list. Like you talked about this. This isn't a box office list. This is, I don't want to say bougie, it's cerebral, right? This is more of a cerebral list. Where do you think Gladiator should sit? Where would it sit on your list?
I would have, if I'm just eyeballing the list, I probably would have slotted Gladiator in there around the 40s or 50s. As opposed to being 92, where anytime you get into the 90s, and you can also say this about number 100, Superbad, it's almost like, hey, thanks for playing. You were never in consideration to be a great movie of this century, but we're going to put you on the list. It's a little bit like when you have a college football playoff and you have your teams that can win, and then you also have hey, James Madison is in there. Good for you guys. Go win a game, but you're not going to be in the top 10 ever.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned Superbad, because Mike in Duluth said, I think Superbad should have been higher than 100, but I'm glad it made the list. Same with Anchorman. Mark, this raises an issue that happens a lot with award season. Are comedies undervalued? You talked about the hopelessness and the despair that kind of runs through a lot of 21st century films. Talk about comedies and specifically maybe a few of the comedies on this list.
I mean, look, if people want a list that is just 100 movies that are like Parasite and No Country for Old Men, then have at it. But at some point, you're going to want to laugh. And this is something that obviously, me being a comedian, that we talk about a lot in the green rooms of comedy clubs. And there was a great documentary on Eddie Murphy recently that came out on Netflix. And he's talking about this very subject, how comedy and comedic actors just are not recognized in the same way that drama and dramatic actors are. So that's a debate we can have all day. Seeing comedies on this list made me happy, though. The movie that I thought, okay, this list is bunk if this movie is not on it for me, was Bridesmaids. Because not only is it a hilarious movie, it was an incredible theater experience, and it felt like a movie that universally entertained everyone that went to see it. So Bridesmaids being on the list, I was like, okay, we got some legitimacy here. Superbad being at 100, it felt like you could change that movie out with a couple other comedies that have come out this century, where you could have taken out Superbad, put in The Hangover, or put in Good Boys, or put in Step Brothers, or something like that. So to have Superbad, I look at it more as a spiritual representation of a lot of the comedies and laughs that we got this century, as opposed to that one movie. But nevertheless, I think it's important to include those kind of movies, especially when you look at how dark and dreary a lot of the other films on the list are.
Do you find that they're making fewer comedies even in the past 5 years?
It feels like that. And I think that theatrically, we've seen less comedies be released to wide audiences, whereas you have your Marvel movies and you have your sci-fi flicks and you have like your big time event kind of films. Comedies have sort of found more life on streaming networks these days. So it's not that we're not making comedies or funny things anymore. It's just that the way that we're digesting them is more at home than it is in a movie theater, which is a bummer because there's nothing like being in a theater that's packed opening weekend and just laughing. I mean, I still remember Bridesmaids. I remember The Hangover. I remember going all the way back to my youth and seeing something like Naked Gun 2.5 or seeing Ace Ventura or Liar Liar in the theater. And there's just nothing like those experiences. I mean, sitting in a theater, watching Eddie Murphy and the Nutty Professor was life-changing for me. And it wouldn't be that way if I just watched that movie at home. So there's a lot of great comedy out there. You just have to work to find it a little bit harder than you used to.
Well, this is a different century, so it's for a film for a different list. But I remember watching Raw, Eddie Murphy Raw, in the theater, and I was in high school. And
my gosh!
And it's an amazing experience. So foreign films, there's plenty of them on this list. Old Boy, Amelie, The Lives of Others. Are there any foreign films on the list that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I mean, if you haven't seen Parasite, it's worthy of winning the Oscar that year and most years. I would also say the Miyazaki film Spirited Away. We would have ride it if it wasn't in the top 100, but the fact that it's in the top 10, I think it's one of those movies where, yes, you see it's animated, and I have a niece who loves the movie, but it's a wonderful film. And if you're looking for foreign films, this is the list for you, because there's a lot of stuff on here that is not just... it's not just from a different place. It feels out of time. I mean, even something that you're looking at a City of God, something like that. Roma is on the list, which a lot of people were aware of. I'm not sure how many people have actually seen it. And these are movies that you just don't see released from American filmmakers. And it's a completely different perspective. And that's why I think filmmakers and lists like this are so important to take in the entire globe and what people are releasing, as opposed to just looking at, here's the top 100 movies from America this century. Because honestly, the list would not be nearly as exciting or expansive as it is.
Mesa in Greensboro said, I was so happy to see Almost Famous on the list. It's definitely my favorite movie. Mark, I was surprised to see that one on the list as well. I thought it was older, actually.
I thought it was too.
Yeah. It's from 2000. It's number 47 on the list. Where would you put it on your list?
I might look. I went to school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I was born there, so my heart is with Greensboro. My area code was 336 for way too long. I feel you.
Yes.
It belongs on the list of the 100 best movies of this century. Being in the 40s, you know what? I might actually work out a trade. This is my first trade of the day. I'm just going to swap Almost Famous and Gladiator. I'm just going to take Almost Famous, put it in the 90s, put Gladiator in the 40s, and I feel much better about this list.
What's up, fam? I'm sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together and iHeart Women's Sports.
Because let's be real, women's sports is giving us way too much to talk about these days.
The highlights, the rivalries, the breakout stars, the moments that take over your entire timeline.
And the conversations that start during the game and somehow keep going all week.
Every week, we're breaking down the biggest stories across women's sports.
We'll give you our takes, our debates, and probably a few disagreements.
We'll talk to athletes, celebrate big moments, and get into what's happening on and off the field, court, track, and beyond.
Because we're not just interested in what happened, we're interested in why everyone's talking about it. Because everyone watches women's sports. So if you're already a fan,
or you're just getting into the game, there's a seat for you right here.
Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Hoda Kotb, host of the podcast Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb. Okay, if you know me, you know this. I'm always searching for inspiration, for support, and useful tools to help maximize joy. So this podcast lets us uncover all of that together. We're going to have these meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people, like when actress Olivia Munn shared how she overcame fierce health challenges that she never saw coming.
I've gone through breast cancer and then helped my mother through breast cancer, and that was more difficult. There's a lot of people who understand postpartum depression. I was not prepared for postpartum anxiety.
Olympic champ Shawn Johnson revealed why she had no choice but to be a gymnast.
There was something about gymnastics that was intoxicating to me. It's given me a belief that we all have one of those treasures inside of us. We just have to find it.
Listen to Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke and Yerin, Samira y Gracie. I'm so excited.
On the bouncy bed.
You have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to Suite 305, where the group chat comes to life. What up? Es como que una forma de decir como, hola amiga, hola mejor amiga, hola hermana, what up?
Mira, nunca lo había hablado con nadie. Excepto con mis hijos. Mis hijos sí saben. Yes.
Sé mi amante.
Uf. Punch. Qué increíble. Ya la telenovela.
You're the only person I know that loves a yellow starburst. It's lemonade.
No hay alguien que te falta, como que tú dices, me gustaría colaborar con esta persona. This is Suite 305. Listen to Suite 305 with Lele Pons as part of My Cultura podcast network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with the one, the only, and the one, Michael Bublé.
You guys, I'm genuinely a huge fan. Like, it's funny, you know, I made a whole thing about doing this TikTok where I got you guys to sign the guitar, but right. It was real. Like, we listen to you in the car all the time. Like, it literally is hanging up with all your signatures.
Wow. I am so honored. After Kevin's recent, let's call it interesting confession about Michael, I had a feeling this wasn't going to be going away. We figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they're like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal. Like, what a man got to do? What a man got to do?
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Do you have a hockey rink in your house?
I do.
Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jake Brennan, and on my podcast, Disgraceland, I tell the stories behind music's biggest names, the moments that shaped them, haunted them, and changed music history forever. Like how the story of the Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl isn't just about music. Imagine that. You're in the biggest band on the planet, as Dave Grohl was in 1994 in Nirvana. And the phone rings, and you learn that your singer, your friend, the reluctant voice of a generation, Kurt Cobain, is dead. This is a story of fame, pressure, friendship, and the weight of fulfilling your destiny. Learn more about the moment everything changed. Disgraceland is part of the Exactly Right Network. Listen to new episodes every Tuesday, bonus episodes Thursday, and rewinds on Sunday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is American History Hotline. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Today, my guest is Mark Ellis, comedian and Rotten Tomatoes correspondent. We're talking about the best films of the 21st century. Send us your thoughts on films or whatever, anything to do with American history. We'll share them in a follow-up episode. Remember, record yourself asking a question with the voice memo app on your phone, or make us a video and email it to AmericanHistoryHotline@gmail.com. That's AmericanHistoryHotline@gmail.com. Now, back to the show. Mark, let's talk about what's not on the list. Are there any glaring omissions in your opinion?
All right, so glaring omissions, my first thought, and actually the movie that I was hunting for when I was looking at this list, is a movie that is on it, but I thought it wasn't. So I was initially really mad, and I was just going to come on this show and rant about why Spotlight isn't on the list, but it is. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. The big omissions for me are... I feel like sports movies, I believe Moneyball is on there, and I don't think that there's much else in the way of athletics, which you don't need a lot of sports movies, but I feel like Creed belonged on the list. I feel like everything that Creed did, from a reinventing Rocky but not feeling like we've seen this movie before and it's just a tired retread, to inject fresh life into that series while retaining the star of Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, in an Oscar-nominated performance. Michael B. Jordan, Ryan Coogler's really coming out of his shell, directing and just showing everybody who he is and what he's going to go on to do. I feel like Creed is a film that belongs in the top 100 somewhere. And the other thing that really surprised me is I know that you're not going to have a lot of votes for comic book movies. The Dark Knight, obviously, even though I would have swapped The Dark Knight out for Batman Begins, that's my personal take, and I'm not going to win that argument. I feel like the biggest omission on this list is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse not being a part of the show. That's going to bother me for quite some time, because it was such a... pardon the pun, it was a marvel to watch. I've never seen anything like it before. That animation style is so impressive. The storytelling is incredible. The comedy works. The action works. It's a movie for everyone, regardless of which Spider-Man is your favorite, regardless if you've never heard of Spider-Man. It's an incredible filmmaking achievement, and I feel like one of these Spider-Verse movies should have been recognized.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. That film it's incredible. It is absolutely it was stunning to watch. And you know, the superhero films as a genre, you talk about, again, film in a time of hopeless film in a time of hopelessness. We're searching for the hero, and we've only found them in film, and that's probably the biggest genre of this century, right? So far, commercially at least.
I mean, you look at the box office receipts, and unless your name is Avatar, nobody's playing in the world that is the Marvel and DC, for that matter. I mean, comic book movies have completely taken over. And it's one of the reasons why, if you look at theaters and you look at going back to the comedy question, I think that those big spectacle movies are kind of more what we go to the cinemas for now, as opposed to comedies. But you can't deny their impact. And so while I wasn't surprised to not see something like Avengers Endgame on there, Into the Spider-Verse, I was really surprised. I was happy to see Black Panther on there. I think that of all the Marvel movies, either Black Panther or Iron Man, the first one, would have deserved that recognition, but it feels almost like Black Panther is not only representing itself, but it's representing a whole lot of other movies on that list. But, the other thing, if we're talking about snubs that bothered me, is that you only got one Spielberg movie on there, and that just seemed weird to me. It didn't, and it wasn't Munich, and it wasn't Catch Me If You Can, and we didn't have any James Bond films on there either. And I feel like Casino Royale belongs on that list. Some folks would have preferred Skyfall. I say Casino Royale is by far the best of the Craig movies. And I think that, again, reinventing that Bond wheel and making it fit into our new time frame was a landmark achievement that should not be overlooked.
Well, considering where this list comes from, right? Who the directors and the actors and the industry people who helped contribute to what this list became, do you think that there is a sense, no matter the quality of reinvention, that people hear Spielberg or people hear Bond and they think of a different time?
That's fair. And it may not even be they're thinking of a different time, but they're thinking of, look, you had 30 cracks at this bat before we got to this century. So let's make this list about this century. But I also think, going back to my point about Creed, is that there is room and it's necessary to see the kind of stories that we used to tell and to see if you can properly reinvent them for a new time period. And so while not everything is able to do that, and I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm not going to argue that The Force Awakens or Last Jedi should be on this list. I think Rogue One might have been able to be there, but I do understand that you want a lot of original films on here, and that's what I would want as well. But if you're looking at something like Casino Royale or Creed, I feel like that they did their homework. They did the assignment, and they just got left off this list for reasons that baffle me.
Matt in San Bernardino says, I actually thought Human Centipede would be on the list. People have no taste in cinema, I guess. Mark,
yeah,
I don't
emphasis
even know
on
where
taste, right?
Yeah, I don't even know where we should begin on that comment.
Matt, don't worry. I'm sure Human Centipede is on a lot of other lists that you can search online. So it may not be in the New York Times one, but there's a lot of corners in New York where you can find Human Centipede on their list.
Matt's comment raises a good point. There's not a lot of horror films on this list, and especially when we're talking about a period of great despair and hopelessness. And we've had great horror films in the 2000s, arguably, like, Drag Me From Hell, The Ring. Where are all the horror films?
If you're going to put a movie on there, I was actually looking at this list and thinking, okay, where is it? I know it's coming. Where is it? And it never showed up. The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers. I feel like The Witch is a stunning film that puts you in that time period in a way that I don't think I've ever felt before, as far as the 1600s and just looking at these folks trying to get by. And you have all these different themes that are coming into play. You have such a looming, eerie presence, and it doesn't show a lot. It doesn't need to show a lot. To borrow the Jaws term, you don't see the shark a whole lot in this movie, and you don't have to, because Robert Eggers is just that talented of a director, and the story he's weaving here is just so compelling, and it never relents. And the climax at the end of the film, it all builds up to something that pays off. And so many times in horror movies, you get some good scares going up to it, and then it doesn't really close the deal with the third act. I feel like The Witch stuck the landing. It was a 10 out of 10 for me. That's the movie that I would put on there, and I think it belongs alongside a film that was on the list, Let the Right One In. So I'm happy to see that one on there. I didn't need to see like The Conjuring or anything like that on there. That's a great horror movie. I love The Ring. I didn't need to see it on there, but man, I feel like The Witch got left out.
I saw Weapons this summer, and I thought that was a horror film that kind of reinvented how we tell. You talk about jump scares,
Yeah.
All the jump scares are there, and it reinvented or manipulated how we tell the story.
It was such a great theater experience for me, because you're watching it and you're expecting a horror film, and you get plenty of thrills and chills and jump scares, but there's also a lot of laughs in that movie that I wasn't anticipating, but it somehow elevated my overall experience. So that was kind of the best of both worlds, where you're laughing in a collective group and you're scared in a collective group. So Weapons did a lot for me. I was so excited to see it when I heard about it this past year at Las Vegas CinemaCon. I don't know that I would put it on the top 100 of this list, but it's a contender for sure.
All right, let's get to the top 10. I will note that Get Out was number 8 on the list. That feels pretty good.
Yes.
Thoughts? Any thoughts? Are you good? Are we in agreement?
I feel like Get Out is the horror movie that, if you want to call it a horror movie, it's the horror suspense thriller that belongs in the top 10 on this and pretty much any other list you want to put it on. Get Out is unassailable, in my opinion.
Sharon from White Plains said, I think Moonlight should have been number 1. I never felt a movie so deeply before. I literally couldn't breathe. Moonlight was number 5. How do you feel about that, Mark?
I'm fine with Moonlight being number 5. If it wasn't in the top 10 somewhere, then I would be very disappointed. I feel like Moonlight, I actually feel like just because of their shared history, Moonlight should have been number 5 and La La Land should have been 95. Like, put them 5 spots from each other. But if you're looking at Moonlight as a movie that impacts you in a way that it's so personal, it's such an emotional film, but it sticks with you. And you can't stop thinking about it after you're done watching it. And that's a film that I think was not only worthy of winning the Oscar that year. I think most years that movie takes the cake. It made me feel things that I was not expecting and that I haven't felt watching a movie in a long time. And I don't know that I've felt that way since.
Let's get to it. Let's get to the number 1 film on the list. Mark, what was it?
It was Parasite. And it's the film that's directed by Bong Joon-ho, and it has everything in it in terms of class and discrimination and the haves versus the have-nots. And it was the Oscar winner for the year it was released. And it's a movie that I think it's one of the reasons why I do like the Oscars. There's many bones I can pick with the Oscars, but when something wins the Oscar for Best Picture, everybody now needs to go see it. Now you have folks like my mom, who as soon as the nominations come out, she's going to run to the theater and see everything that's nominated. Even if you're not that diligent, you see a movie won Best Picture, you're going to want to check it out. And I think that platform for Parasite was incredibly important, not just in getting it to a list like this, but in getting a lot of eyeballs on a movie that deserves to be seen.
Let's to wrap up here. Let's think about where films, not only like the actual creative aspect of making films has come in the past 25 years, but the way we watch films. Is there anything about this list and this century going from you have to go to the theater to you go to the video store or the concession box and you get the DVD and you send in the original Netflix to now people just binging, in the habit of binging. There's so much content, talk about that.
I mean, look, we have giant screens at our homes now. And my only suggestion to people, if you don't feel like running out to the theater, I totally understand that. I think that you just aim to give yourself the best theater experience at home. And that means put away your cell phone for 90 minutes or for 2 hours and just turn off the lights and really engage and relate to the movie and what its themes are and what it's trying to tell you and how you feel about that. As far as where filmmaking is going, I would look at this list if I was a young filmmaker and I would feel inspired because this proves that there is no one way to make a film. There's no one way to get into the business. And now with so many tools literally in our pockets with our cell phones, there are ways to get your voice out there. There's still a lot of pitfalls and a lot of hurdles and a lot of unfairness that it feels like in the movie making industry. But when you look at this list, it is filled not just with great movies, but with great stories about different ways to get your script to the right people, to get your film made with the right people, and to get it released and to find an audience.
Mark, before we go, can you give us some movie recommendations currently?
Okay, so I guess it was too recent that Predator Badlands wasn't on this list because that movie blew me away. This year. My recommendations for the year, I would also throw Weapons in there. I think that Weapons was, again, it's one of the movies that you watch and you're like, I need to go to the movies more. It was that kind of feel for me. If I'm looking at, the best movies that I saw as far as like something that you would see ranked highly on Rotten Tomatoes, a lot of those movies are going to be coming out and going to be in higher sort of demand as we get closer to Oscar season. I'm struggling to put together something that I saw that really like blew me away recently, but I would say, why don't you take it? And then I'm going to look at I'm going to look up my list of my favorite movies of the year.
Well, I mean, I took my daughter to see Zootopia 2 last weekend, but
yeah?
I mean, I haven't really, what I've noticed is a lot of stories out there about how poorly films are doing right now. The box office is doing, the movie theater. And I don't know what to attribute that to. I haven't seen the Wicked or The Wicked Part 2. I haven't seen those films, but I don't know what else is kind of out there right now, to be honest with you. And I may be part of the problem.
Well, you're going to have a big movie coming out in a couple weeks with, or it might even be this week, which is Avatar, Fire and Ash. So that's going to be a huge spectacle. And look, you can say you want about those movies. I feel like every time I sit in the theater to watch an Avatar movie, I am transported to Pandora. And it's an incredible, what James Cameron's able to do with that world and still put butts in seats is remarkable. As far as movies that I've seen this year that did have pretty good box office returns, I would put Sinners up there. And again, you're talking about horror movies. I feel like that was such a different, unique take on that time period. And obviously with vampiric horror films. And then a movie coming up that it may not be the biggest box office winner, but you're going to be hearing about it come Oscar time. And it's a sports movie, and that would be Marty Supreme. It's I'm going to tell you ping pong, and you're going to be like, what? But then I'm going to tell you Timothée Chalamet, and you're going to be like, all right, I'll give it a chance.
I've been talking with Mark Ellis, comedian and Rotten Tomatoes correspondent. Mark, we'll have to do it again sometime.
I would love to, Bob. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to American History Hotline, a production of iHeart Podcasts and Scratch Track Productions. The show's executive producer is James Morrison. Our executive producers from iHeart are Jordan Runtall and Jason English. Original music composed by me, Bob Crawford. Please keep in touch. Our email is americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. If you like the show, please tell your friends and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Feel free to hit me up on social media to ask a history question or to let me know what you think of the show. You can find me at Bob Crawford Base. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.
What's up, fam? It's sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together.
We're breaking down the biggest headlines, the viral moments, and the stories everyone's talking about across women's sports.
From game-changing performances to culture-shifting conversations, we'll give you our takes, our debates, and a few laughs along the way.
Because everyone watches women's sports. Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Joy 101, and listen now. Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb is presented by CVS.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke, and Yerin. We have surprises.
Many surprises.
Welcome to the Sweet 305 podcast, where the group chat comes to life.
What up? You're the only person I know that loves a yellow Starburst. It's lemonade.
This is Sweet 305. Here, oversharing is encouraged. Listen to Sweet 305 with Lele Pons on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with Michael Bublé. After Kevin's recent interesting confession about Michael, we figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they were like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal.
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
30 years ago, an island off Manhattan almost brought down New York City.
Who will you trust? Your friends and neighbors? Or will you trust the people 5 miles overseas?
This is a story about neighbors turning on each other and what happens when a forgotten place decides it's had enough.
But we're not stopping, are we?
Listen to Revisionist History, The Staten Island Problem on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.
Looking for a home that keeps you connected to Silicon Valley without the usual barriers to entry? The Gates in Morgan Hill by City Ventures is a walkable neighborhood near downtown restaurants, outdoor trails, and an easy commute to the Bay Area. It's a small town setting with access to major career hubs. Every home is all electric with buyer-owned solar included. With limited availability, now's the time to take a closer look. Discover your new home at cityventures.com. That's cityventures.com.